we'll have the confirmed schedule for the different facilities. The training is a little more amorphous than I realized. The machine itself has different fuel levels that they have to figure out. You don't apparently fill it up the whole way before you sweep something. So they want to figure all that out so they know how far away something can get in a full tank or not a full tank. I don't want to second guess that. I want them to, to be able to get out and back.
Sure.
Yeah. But I will keep updating you all as I have information.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3 was a request from the communications subcommittee, education subcommittee from last month that one of the efforts that we're working on is truck fleet safety on streets, recognizing we have more and more people biking on those streets. We have reached out to our partners at Silver Eagle, who are part of our Vision Zero program. We had a great conversation with them. They're helping us figure out what their different training modules look like and how it can fit in. Also a conversation with Together for Safer Roads, who's kind of an umbrella not-for-profit that the city has worked with. We're going to talk, they're looking into their training that they've given fleets. And then we just received a contact at the statewide freight trucking association, and we'll be reaching out to see, can we work with them as more an umbrella as opposed to each individual fleet. So that work is ongoing. I feel like we've done a lot in a month on that one.
Given that month too.
Yeah, exactly. And then lastly, a conversation about engagement in any of our transportation planning projects. Engagement is one of those things that it is an evolving practice. The types of engagement we did 30 years ago are very different than they are today. But honestly, what we do today is different than it was 3-4 years ago. We have shifted by project based on context. During COVID, obviously, you saw many different virtual meetings, online meetings, or pop-ups with masks, things like that. At the same time, kind of uniquely, the city has been really pushing for bike planning exercises to be more in the field based. So many of you have joined us for pop-up bike lanes where we actually show a community what something could look like and get their feedback. We did that on MLK Griggs, Griggs late last summer. We had done that in Third Ward earlier. We try to go out to community meetings, whether events in parks or with religious organizations, farmers markets. So you may not see the just traditional 6 o'clock at a gym where everybody shows up, listens to a talking head, give a PowerPoint, gives a few comments and leaves, because it's only so effective. We are really trying to broaden. The downside of it is it catches many people off guard. They don't actually recognize that as traditional engagement anymore because it doesn't feel traditional. So we are going to do a little better job about communicating this as part of the overall engagement strategies, but we're not going to stop doing these different types of engagement that we're doing. And I want to give a shout out to many of our partners who join us. There's just no way city staff alone can do all this, especially Precinct 1, who's just been a great partner on these projects. Parks Board should get one of those shout outs. Metro, many of our partners. And so when you see engagement, recognize that takes many different shapes and forms these days. Any questions on the report?
I think so. The planning department or public works should think about how it shares the information. I think so. The Public Works Rebuild Houston website has a couple of sentences about it, but I think so the planning department can elaborate. But I think so there is some backlash related to bicycle projects, but I think so bicycle projects are different than capital projects. And I think so we somehow need to find a better way to communicate to the community. And it's a part of the changing world we live in, and the COVID, I'm not making excuses, but had created some challenges around that time frame, and we all had to retool ourselves in how we communicate and how we try now to get people back to offices. So it's a different challenge every agency is dealing with. So I think so we just need to acknowledge that and be honest and share that information with stakeholders that request that information. So having it somewhere on the website would be helpful that we can direct people to. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
We'll move to the chair's report.
I brought a prop. Some of us still get our news on processed tree carcasses. I'm one of those people. I actually first came across this online somehow, that I got a text or an email from cron.com. And so I saw this. It had a very grabbing headline, I guess. It got my attention when it reads, why would Houston want to rebuild roads to slow cars down? And it turns out it was kind of a rhetorical question as the editorial went on. And they put as their, one primary reason, essentially in Exhibit A of a cyclist that was riding down the bike lane on Austin Street when a car pulled off a side street into the bike lane, and fortunately first hit the concrete before hitting the cyclist. So the concrete slowed down the car quite a bit, and although he suffered some broken ribs, and I'm sure that was painful, it could have been a lot worse. And a great quote from the cyclist was, "I'm walking around because of the infrastructure." So that's huge. A big part of the article was the need to slow cars down. And indeed, as David will relate later in his presentation on the LAB bike-friendly communities renewal, they pointed out that's something that's on our to-do list. And it's not just a city thing, it's a state thing. It has to be, because it's the state that sets the minimum speed limits that cities, the minimum default, I guess, speed limit. So if it's not posted, I think it's 30 is what it is. And so there have been efforts in the past. I don't know that they went very far, but that's something I think should be on all of our to-do lists, is to work with other cities in the state, certainly work with Bike Texas.
Joining virtually, please make sure you're on mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Our goal or our vision is to become a
Y'all just muted the main line. I can't hear him.
okay now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right. I'll just backtrack a minute here. Our goal is to make Gold Level a bicycle-friendly community. To me, the real goal is to put, for example, the ghost bike people out of business. I think our vision should be that 15 years from now, when kids see those white bikes, assuming they're still around at various locations around the city, they'll point at them and say, "What's that for?" And we would say, "Well, that's where somebody was riding a bike and they got hit by a car and killed." And they would say, "Really? That actually happened? How could that be?" And, one answer would be, "Well, because we thought speed was more important than safety. We thought taking a couple of minutes off of our drive is worth 300 plus deaths a year on Houston streets and highways." And then our kids will say, or grandkids, great grandkids will say, "Were you people crazy?" And we'd have to say, "Yeah, we were, but we got better." That's what our vision needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda is the approval for the October 22 minutes.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes as presented or as distributed in the email.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next slide. All right, public comment. All right. You can send in written comments to the BAC at BAC@HoustonTX.gov by 2 p.m. the day of the BAC meeting. Comments will be read aloud by staff during the meeting. If you would like to comment by phone, you can dial in 936-755-1521 using ID 486 279-208 #. You can press *6 to mute and unmute when called upon with the chair. If you're visiting via Microsoft Teams, you can type your name in the chat and we'll address you there. At this time, Chair, we have 4 comments that were mailed in to us that I'd like to read to the BAC. They'd like to be a part of the record. All right, the first one is from Harrison Lewis. He said, I'd like to politely express on behalf of myself, current neighbors of A Street in the Heights, and previous neighbors from Midtown are unfortunately not happy with the recent reduction of traffic lanes due to the installation of bike routes on Gray, Waugh, and now 11th Street. Traffic delays are now increased during busy hours, and it's common to sit through 11th Street light westbound crossing North Shepherd. More unfortunately, this is incentivizing drivers to avoid the main neighborhood roads, such as 11th Street, drive through smaller surrounding roads, which we see bikers, walkers, and children are on. Please consider renovating smaller roads in the future, such as 10th Street, to accommodate peaceful and safe bike traffic, opposed to mixing the route with busy cars. I know this is not as simple as stated, especially regarding diverting bikers to lights for safe crossing on major roads, but I appreciate you listening and know you will consider our thoughts alongside other considerations. Finally, have there been studies on bike traffic on, finally, have there been studies of bike traffic on roads already completed, such as Gray Street, to see utilization? I feel that Houston is a hard city to bike due to heat and distances. I'm sure there's a lot to consider, and hopefully studies from other communities, and there are other studies from other communities. I don't need an answer, but I hope that the right people are acknowledgeable on the topic to guide decisions to enjoy the process. Enjoy the process, and thank you for listening. Harrison Lewis. All right. The next one is from Frank Carbaz. Hi, Bikeways. Please connect 50 feet of trail so cyclists and other Bayou Trail users do not need to exit the Bayou Trail and cross multiple lanes of frontage road at North Braeswood and West Loop. We've looked into this. We've responded back to this emailer, and wanted to let them know that in order to build 50 feet across TxDOT right away, we'll have to either go above or beyond it. But there is a connection there. There's a light that's also there. Also, there's 8 foot of sidewalk, so it's safe to cross over and make that connection to the other side. But unfortunately, that's not what we're able to do. And we also want staff. We also staff believes it would not be beneficial to use our resources to construct like a seamless connection of that way. So
I would like to respond. Again, this is at North Braeswood and the 610 loop. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that area, and calling it safe would be in quotes at best. It's very difficult. You have to be looking every direction at once, because between people making right turns on red, left turns, and just running the lights, it's a tough crossing. I will say that on Houston Parks Board lists of things to do is they have a trail planned on the south side of Braeswood that will go underneath the feeder road, so there will be that alternative long term. It's just it's a pretty difficult thing to change on the north side.
I also like to add that we'll have a presentation on that at the infrastructure subcommittee meeting.
Great, thank you.
All right, the third one is from Eddie Andrew. He says, hello, I believe several intersections along existing bikeways could be improved. I noticed recently that at the intersection of Taylor Street and Sawyer Heights Street, that bicycle detectors have been installed. These make it so that you don't have to push the pedestrian walk button. Instead, it automatically recognizes when a bike reaches the intersection. It was a great idea, and it seems to work really well. There are 2 other intersections that would greatly benefit from this upgrade. East TC Jester at Ella Boulevard, Wakefield Drive at Ella Boulevard, TC Jester at Drew Bar Lane. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to chat over the phone in more detail. Eddie Andrew. All right, and the last one we have is from Eric Whitaker. Says friend of bikeways. My name is Erica Whitaker, and I'm a professional engineer of the state of Texas and an active citizen. I'm particularly active in projects that improve my neighborhood and its surroundings. I would like to propose to you a project that would connect Addicts Reservoir bicycle path with the bicycle path on the north spur of Terry Hershey Park. This path would connect two primary bicycle corridors nearly seamlessly. As a neighbor of this area, I frequently ride this area, and I observed a few challenges. Number one, the intersection at Eldridge Parkway and North Dairy Ashford is challenging for pedestrians and cyclists. The north corners of the intersection should be improved for bike and pedestrians traffic at all, if at all possible. The sidewalk on the north side of Park Row near the intersection of Eldridge and Dairy Ashford ends abruptly. The end of the sidewalk was no doubt due to the proceeding area being crowded with utilities, as well as as a retaining wall for a detention pond to the north. There are three options for which this sidewalk could continue west. The first option would be involve rearranging utilities. This may be costly. The second option would be to turn the right westbound lane into a dedicated bike lane. The third option would be to have a crossing at the median where the bike path can be installed. I prefer option 2. In summary, I propose the city for a dedicated bike lane to be installed on the red line below. Oh, he sent a picture. I'll add that to the post meeting. Please let me know if I can talk to someone to advocate for this project. Call me anytime with the number below, Eric Whitaker, and his number.
And we did connect that commenter to the Energy Corridor District, who is doing a master plan exactly in this area, and they are in connection, and we'll be talking about the projects coming out of that.
Terrific. Thanks, David.
You get it.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone in the chat signed up? Okay. No one being in the chat? We can move forward. Next slide.
If I may.
Yes, please.
Thanks. So as you all know, we submitted our application to the Bicycle Friendly Community League of American Bicyclists late last year. I'm going to go through, we got the response, you already heard from the chair, we remained at bronze level. I'm going to go through in a short version about what we heard and what we're taking away and where we can move forward from there. But I do want to stop for a second. I think the chair's comment that a certification is one group certification based on their criteria, but that shouldn't dismiss the work we are all doing, the progress we have made, and the real goals of what we are trying to achieve. So I will admit I was sad in that we were still at bronze. I'm still very proud of everybody who joins us for this work and how much we've done in the last few years.
I totally agree.
Thanks. Okay, next slide, please. So as you all remember, our goal is to achieve gold level bike friendly status by 2027. It is possible to jump multiple levels in a certification. So should we submit again in a few years, you can skip over silver. So it's still in the range. And honestly, if we are at silver in a few years, but that much significantly advanced, we may not hit this goal, but we will still be doing good work. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, that is so small. But just as context, the League of American Bicyclists represents almost 500 communities, 1,500 businesses, 200 and so universities, just to provide the context. Next, please. And our history, in 2003, we had no award. In 2007, we first received an honorable mention. Fast forward a few years, 2018, we received the bronze certification. Next, please. And then getting up to today, the 2022 application package. So as context, it was 40 pages of 176 questions. There was math, there was reading comprehension, there was everything you remember from any SAT or standardized test. It was in this thing. We really asked for help from everybody around this table, specific groups who provided context and served as contacts are all listed on there. multiple departments, agencies, the BAC as the whole, B-Cycle, Bike Houston, Link Houston, the whole list is there. But also there was a follow-up general public survey, which also fed into it. Next, please. So you all know at this point, so from 2018 to 2022, still a continuation of the bronze certification. Next, please. So some of the outcomes, so now I'm going to summarize the feedback we heard, and it's a 4 or 5 page report card that they gave us on our, 40-ish page application. So this first is that public feedback, how people were feeling. I was actually quite heartened to hear 45% of people were satisfied or very satisfied. I would not have guessed we would have scored that high on a general public survey. And then this next one on the right, how safe or dangerous is it to ride a bike in your neighborhood? I think this really goes to how big a city Houston is. So 20% people said it was safe, and about 20% of the people said it was dangerous, and the middle said it depends. And honestly, you look around our city at 670 square miles, that's probably about right. We have certain neighborhoods that have really moved along and corridors that have gotten a lot better. And we have a lot of city that we have a lot of work we have to do. I was heartened by this because I was afraid we were going to hear with all this work, still only a couple of % of people felt that they could ride, and the majority were really, not feeling good out there. And that's not what I take away from this. So we are making progress and people are starting to see it. Next, please. So now a summary of the actual feedback of the evaluation that that they do. It's in 5 categories. These should sound very familiar. These are 5 traditional E categories: engineering, education, encouragement, evaluation, and now equity. So what they do is they rate our application, that's the line for Houston, and then of everybody who submitted in this year, what the maximum score anybody received is. Okay, and they don't tell us what their ultimate certification was, but this is, if you took the max of anybody, this is what we were. And all along here, we're about 2/3 of each max score. Excuse me?
Sometimes better.
Yeah, a little bit. But on the next slide, so I highlighted from their report card the things that we were identified as doing well. That's the plus column. And the things that we can really work more on to improve, and that's the delta column. So I'm going to just highlight these quickly, and I will take any questions, although I have a little bit more to go if you want to stop at this point. So the things that we do really, really well, and I'm hoping these echo from the conversations we've had: regional coordination. And that really speaks to the work we do. Bicycle access to public transportation, and our thanks to Metro for all the work they've done there. Well, we need to improve our end of trip facilities like bicycle racks at a lot of locations and a standardized recommendation for that. But also we have to build out our network more. And I want to come back to the scale of what people are talking about when they make this comment about build it out. On education, they said we did really well on adult education and we need to do more on youth education. I take a little exception, mostly because of the work that Precinct 1 has been doing. And HGAC plus some from the city, we've really been doing a lot. I need to talk to them about how that scales to a city with multiple school districts, probably hundreds of schools, and what that looks like, but I don't have that answer yet. Encouragement, they say we do very good with culture and promotion, but access to equipment and repair services, which is often the private sector stepping in, but maybe something we can look at. We do really well on public engagement, which this was their take when we submitted exactly that discussion we had earlier about the different types of things. But then how we evaluate and the difference we're making on the outcomes, they say we're not there yet. And on those outcomes, it was very clear that the absolute number of fatalities of people biking, as soon as that was a double-digit number, we were going to fare poorly here. It is not normalized by population or size of city. And they did say, in their discussions, they take that into account. But as soon as that red flag raised, we weren't going to get all those points. And obviously that ties into building the network and all these other things and our Vision Zero plan. Our equity and accessibility, our policies and plans, they thought were very good. Collecting the data and showing that we're doing it over and over again, and this might actually go a bit to Amar's point, that we're not showing everybody what we do and being able to quantify how many people we've connected with, being able to reach out to them over and over again and expand those networks. I'm going to pause first to take a breath, but also to see if there are questions. The next few slides were specific things identified that we could work on to improve our package for next time. And my thoughts on where we are, whether it's a continuing thing we're doing or if it's a new start that we need to start.
Are there any questions from the BAC or comments?
Can I make a comment?
Please.
I think so. This is a good overview of how we did and where we could improve. I think so. As a bicycle advisory committee, if we can work with the various subcommittees to see how we can support the city of Houston in any of this effort, or reach out to our local nonprofits and making sure we document the things that we can out of this, so that we have a really good idea of what do we need to check off before whenever that next submittal comes in, and we have done all the homework as much as possible to achieve that goals. Like, there's a lot of bicycle education being done by a number of other partners in our region. And if we just need to start collecting education information related to that and put it on some sort of a format, whether the planning department or some nonprofit takes on that effort, us as a collective address those that documentation of effort, then I think so that may be the best way to move forward, because we cannot be relying just on the planning department, but at least at the same time, we should also reach out to other stakeholders, but use the planning department still becomes a central repository of information. That may be the most, given the size of the city and the region, that may be the most pragmatic way of us moving forward with addressing some of these things.
Is there any type of comparative chart to show where we were in 2018 compared to now in terms of these categories?
So there isn't, and I'm really glad you asked that question. The categories and what they ask have changed year over year. So there are full sections, especially the equity section and who we reach out to, which were not asked a few years ago. We could kind of try to match up a few of the questions, but even the scoring system's a little different. If BAC would really like us to spend the time doing it, I don't know if it's the best use of our time at this point. But it did feel a little bit like we were, what we had aimed for in 2018, they had changed the goalposts on us on some of these. And I'm trying to wrap my mind how we don't fall into that again in our next application. One thing I might suggest when we get to that point, we have a few years, is actually the BAC establish an ad hoc application subcommittee, and then maybe we can have more eyes on it and more thoughts on how we can frame material.
About 100 people. And I'm just wondering what the demographics on the people that they sampled, and then if you could compare that demographic to the previous survey, it might, shed some light on opinion.
I will reach out to them and ask. I don't think they provided that in the response package, but we may as well ask for it.
David, you mentioned moving the goalposts. It seems like one of the things that may have changed, and I don't know if it came up in their evaluation, was like, for example, striped bike lanes don't count as bikeways, or to oversimplify maybe. I don't know if that came up in their review. Is that, maybe based on that standard, we actually have fewer miles of bikeways now than we did in 2018? I don't know. Did that come up?
They have basically a complicated Excel sheet where you plug in all your different types. So our overall numbers certainly went up, and you kind of get just less credit depending on the type of facility, but I don't think they take points off for older stuff. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were looking at the bigger number of what's up and built to standard at this point.
I just had one other question. Will you be posting their scorecard to the website?
Yes, we'll
Okay.
be posting that to the Bikeways webpage,
Right.
as well as we'll probably put a link to this presentation so somebody can
That'd be
see
nice.
our summary.
Any other questions or comments from the commission, from the committee? Anyone on the online?
I'll make a remark. This is a really big task. Bicycle network, youth bicycle education. Like, it's hard to kind of cover all the bases. And despite everything, I still think we're doing a good job. So I think kind of just keep doing this, I guess, and don't lose hope.
So then I just want to walk you through the major points that they pointed to for us. Some of these are going to be very, very obvious, like the very first one, continue implementing our bike plan. Well, we're going to do that either way, and of course. But things like make sure we're following our bike facility selection criteria. We have that in our IDM. We're actually updating the chapter 17, which is transit peds and bikes right now, and we're going to flesh that out even a little bit more. So by the next one, that's going to be a done item. Revisit our city's complete streets policy. So all repaving projects also improve roadway safety. That mirrors a Vision Zero action. And we've started doing that. If you've seen, just happens to be also in the Heights on Heights Boulevard, north of 14th Street. There was a repaving project going, and the old way we would have just repaved and restriped the bike lane the way it is. We actually striped a much wider buffer while we were out there. It didn't cost us any more. It was just, while we're doing it, we may as well do it a little bit better. I think we can, as we move forward, we can do even better as we're starting to figure out what is a smaller cost increase, because at the same time, paving dollars, have to go a certain distance. But that's something that we're kind of underway, we can expand on.
Can I ask you questions
Yes,
as you're going
of
through
course.
this? For the complete streets policy, I know that we have an executive order for the complete streets, but I don't know that we have a policy.
We just cited the executive order and they didn't seem to have an issue with that.
Okay, I'm just wondering, would that mean, I'm always, prone to wanting what we want in writing. So is it, something that we can do to maybe investigate solidifying that executive order and kind of turning it over into a complete streets policy?
We can. In my experience, cities around the world, is that it's difficult to specify when you get down to the operational level in an executive level policy. They try to keep it because staff need that flexibility to do the work without coming back for invariance at that level every time. But we can certainly see, is there some way in the language that exists already to flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah.
I raised that question very similar to hers a year or so ago, and I believe at that time the response was, well, we're kind of moving on from Complete Streets to Vision Zero being a more...
Did I say that?
I
Really?
think so. It may have been somebody else, but anyway, that was the answer wherever it came from, was that, we're kind of moving on. So, because I have the same concern. I mean, it's been an executive order. We're going to have a new executive this year, one way or the other,
Yeah.
So, I mean, next year, but elections this year. So I do have concerns that it could be left behind, but if we're confident that it's subsumed within Vision Zero or other initiatives we're doing, I'm not as concerned. So anyway,
We will revisit that.
thank you.
Can I just add
yeah.
one more comment to that? When the Complete Streets executive order was done, there was an annual report that was being published. And I think so the more value of the annual report was to show progress being made in the city. And I think so the resurfacing project is a low-hanging fruit that easily could be documented that the city is making progress, so that 4 years from now, when you're, or whatever years from now you're submitting this application, you already have the raw data available of what progress the city has made. So not so much about the complete streets policy, but how can we get the benefit that policy offers to apply to the bike plan maybe something, whether it's safety improvements at intersections or whether it is accessibility improvements as so projects are resurfaced, or it may hit you. It may help you both with the Vision Zero. It may help you both with the complete streets policy in it, however you want to document that, and it may also help you with the bike plan. That is one way to think about some of that.
For sure. And I should point out, each year's Complete Streets report is on the department's website, and you'll see over the last 2 years a real change in format from we'll call it a very technical memorandum style to something a lot more user-friendly where we can pull data and everybody be on the literal same page. So last year's came out, it was spring, but here I can never remember what spring means. It wasn't super hot, but it wasn't raining anymore. So, somewhere in that time frame is when we do it, when all the data from the year before is available.
I'm sorry.
And I can bring whatever the BAC meeting after the releases, I will make sure to provide the link to everybody.
One more question. The continue to implement the Houston Bike Plan, and I've been a little bit missing in action on the infrastructure committee, but I just wonder, we do well with goals, and do we? And I know we have, roadways picked out for what we want to invest in with using the money that we have allocated with the Houston Bike Plan, but I wonder if we could just maybe kind of solidify what those goals are, put them, like I said, in writing so that we all have a collective understanding of what we're trying to do and by when.
Tell me, so I thought I was following you and I was leading towards the prioritization exercise with our 4 goals at how we balanced it, but your last statement thinks maybe I'm not hearing you.
So, and I need to take a look back at that, but I guess to ensure that we're spending that money, to say we want this project to launch or be like construction by this date, so that we all have an understanding of where the timelines are with things. Because, even me, I get, I'm chin deep in this stuff, and I forget and don't always understand which streets are coming up next and what the timeline is or what their phasing is.
If you'll hold that till later in this meeting, we have the update on where everything is right now.
Okay, great.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So the next one, I'm going to read the whole slide. I'm sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. It's really the top level bullet: work with other Texas communities to advocate TxDOT to improve statewide policies around local bicycling and roadway improvements. Specifically, the first sub-bullet: advocate for lowering the statewide prima facie speed limit. We have been working on that for a very long time. When I read this and I read the sub-bullets about once that's done, do all these other things, I felt like they maybe did not understand how little control we have over our state legislature. I cannot put a timeline on when they're going to do it. I can't say if we do steps A, B, and C that we're going to get to D. We continue. 2 years ago, we submitted, the legislation was out. We submitted a letter in support of it. It was the last bill not to leave the transportation subcommittee committee at the legislature level. We hope this year to be it. But I can't say we're going to do all these things until that first one gets some help.
They do mention it starts with work with other Texas communities. So are we doing that?
Yeah, there's a group called the Texas Vision Zero Cities, and a couple of other similar organizations that we work with together for it, because we're all trying to get that done.
And is Bike Texas in the mix on that also?
I will have to check. I don't know off the top of my head. Okay. Then next slide, please. Develop a more robust evaluation process for our pop-up bike lanes. And honestly, we have not actually thought of those as something we evaluate with. We have really imagined that as an engagement tool to show the community. So that is something brand new that we can start looking at, about how other cities have done it. And then towards the end of ride facilities, talk about bike parking in terms of quality, quantity, and distribution, and start looking at standards for that. So both of those would be new. Improve our bike safety education K through 12. I believe we've already done a lot. Maybe we didn't communicate it well enough, but we will certainly keep that ongoing and accelerate where we can. Something I did not know we were responsible for, increase the number of local league cycling instructors. Susan Dworsky at HGAC just was certified, so we've got one more than we did in the application package. We will see. Honestly, I did not realize we were going to be graded on how many instructors we had certified in the region. Continue working with Houston B-Cycle to reach new riders and integrate the system. Particularly targeted audiences such as older adults and women. And we always work with them to expand the system. They've had an equity focus for a very long time, and we will need to talk about what this would look like.
And maybe we should.
Do you want to hold off on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Encourage University of Houston for them to reapply for bike-friendly university status, so we will reach out to them. Continue our bike counting program using more methods of counting. HGAC has a bike counter lending program that we are part of. So we have counts and we show them and they said, that's good. Now do more. So we will see what more looks like. And then continue efforts to improve data-driven road safety operations to reduce crashes and fatalities. That is 100% our Vision Zero program. And we can show that when we build projects based on our Vision Zero principles and our designs, crashes go down. And I think a few years down the road, when we have even more of these projects up and done, we'll be able to make that case a bit stronger. And I recognize I've done a lot of talking and I apologize. I really wanted you all to have the full story, but I wanted to leave you with this quote from our contact at League of American Bicyclists, because we pushed back a little. We said, we've worked so hard. What did we do? Did you miss anything? Could we have a conversation? I'm going to read this out loud so it's in. Houston garnered a lot of strong debate with several judges originally voting for silver, but ultimately the team came to an agreement that more progress and results on the ground were needed before silver felt appropriate. This was a really tough decision for the team because it is clear that so much work is happening, but the scale of the work need to be done means that continued efforts and investments felt needed before moving Houston up from bronze. Okay, we have more work to do. I take this as we made a pretty good case and we may have just fallen short, but we're not too far away from silver and we might even be able to get to gold next time.
Thank you, David. And I think I may have mentioned this in our last meeting, but I think some cities have a halo effect. I think some cities have a horns effect. And I think that's where we are. I think they just can't believe that Houston could possibly be bike friendly. That's my own bias. I don't know if that's true or not. It will be interesting to see the updated list of bike friendly communities and see what other cities are considered to be silver and whatever. Well, thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. And thank you to the planning department for the amazing amount of effort that went into updating this. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, this is Yohaina Mahmoud from Metro. I want to commend the city staff and David's leadership, and then this committee here. Not to toot our progress that is clearly documented, and I think this final quote really sort of captures a lot of how we feel like we're so close, but I think we have made a lot of progress, having been in planning and in the city for over 20 years. I think people are seeing the progress, and sometimes we feel like there's still a lot to do, and there is still a lot to do, but I think we have come very far, and I think these partnerships, and for all of us working together with advocacy and understanding the importance of safety of our most vulnerable right-of-way users has been really important, and I think the city has really taken a leadership role on bringing that message to this committee and in general to all of the agencies and partners that are involved. So thank you very much for your leadership and for all the implementation that has happened in the last 5-10 years.
Thank you, Yohaina. I totally agree with that. I think we've come so far. This is a totally different environment than what I worked with as an advocate 15 years ago. It really is amazing to see the difference. Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
One quick question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So I know that I think maybe it's every year or so, there's some, or maybe I'm making this up, that we do some type of where are we measured against our Houston Bike Plan metrics every 2 years. Okay, where are we in that cycle? End of 23. Okay, gotcha. I think what would be really cool is if we took advantage of HGAC's counting offering to really get some new, fresh data for that update, or where we are with the bike plan, so that we can begin to show the impacts that some of our new bikeways are having. So moving them, like the speaker originally that we had that was saying, West Gray, 11th Street, WAG, well, how can we build a case for those roads? And I think maybe the process of building up to that report may provide an opportunity to move the counters around a little bit.
I have a question about the Bike Friendly University. I'm still working with UHD, and they submitted the application. I mean, they completed the application last year, but they missed the deadline. Do you happen to know the deadline for this year? Is it still in August? I think it was last year.
It is the same deadline that we were following. They were actually doing a second round, 2 rounds in 23. There was going to be a spring submittal and a fall submittal, but I don't have the date off the top of my head.
Okay. All right, I'll look it up.
All right, next on the agenda is bikeways for fatalities and serious injuries year to date. Commander Christiane Miller.
Okay, next slide, please. So this was the 2022, the end of year report. We ended with 12. That was 2 during daylight hours and 10 during evening or night. And as you can see, it was 1 more than 21 and 4 more than 20. Next slide. The end of year stats for any crash involving a pedocyclist was 391 total crashes. As you can see, then the particular areas of note, there are still no intersections, and this was the first year, because I know in 2021 we had a couple of intersections that had multiple crashes, but there were no intersections that had multiple crashes. West Side, which is our largest division geographically, they had the second most crashes. Central Division does rank number 1, probably not surprising, being that it's central and more densely populated. And we always do our bicycle fatalities, our honor roll, and like you, hopefully put Ghost Bike out of business one day. Next slide. All right, so on to the 2023 report. This is as of last Monday. 1 fatality. This was the crash that occurred on January 8th on McKinney Street in the 3100 block of McKinney. The cyclist was on the bike trail. The motorcyclist that was traveling at a high rate of speed struck the cyclist, and both the cyclist and the motorcyclist were pronounced deceased on the scene. And so that occurred at about 10 p.m. So at night. So unfortunately, starting out 2023 a little earlier, at that same time, 2022, we did not have. Yeah, I think that changed. Sorry. Next slide. Sorry about that. I ran this as of the 13th, and sorry, I didn't. Missed that. 11 year-to-date total pedocyclist crashes, and 3 in the Northeast area. Again, no intersections having multiple crashes. Next slide. and honoring Mr. Atkins, who was the fatality. Next slide. So as a member of the bicycle education subcommittee, we had talked about how to get more people some training. And so I think I mentioned before that the Houston Police Department a few years ago had done a bicycle friendly driver in service class on our it was a video thing and required for all HPD personnel. So we still had that available. I presented last week to the Citywide Safety Committee, which had a number of departments, and hopefully trying to ask, particularly those fleet heavy departments, give them the option because in our City of Houston talent management system, which is our where we register for in-service classes and the availability of online stuff, I got them to download the thing again to open it back up, and so it's there. I explained that option. I explained that Bike Houston's link to basically it takes you to YouTube, but I explained that. I explained how that's also done in lieu of a citation. Presented it. There weren't a lot of questions. I mean, obviously it's a voluntary thing, but trying to put that out there, that saying how we did it, I encouraged, mandatory training. That was the the first one. Encouraged new employee orientation. Encouraged it to be done for consequence if you're involved in any vehicle crash. Encouraged, for voluntary. So it's out there. And that was it. So you were kind of asked how it was, how it was received. I think the thing is too, David, also meeting with the, tomorrow I'll be meeting with the Vision Zero, she's a Vision Zero coordinator, who is also interested in how to get training out to city departments. And since I've kind of already, we already kind of presented this. And so what I'm hoping is to meet with her, show her, the course. And then maybe since she is the City of Houston Vision Zero coordinator, maybe she had a little bit more pull to make the City of Houston departments watch it. So that's what I'm hoping. So that's that. We'll go from there. I'll report again. But it's something. I mean, they at least know what's out there, and I hope that someone will also take some initiative to do that. But that's my report. If anyone has any questions.
I have a question. Thank you for
Sure.
doing that, number one. And
Absolutely.
who all is on the Citywide Safety Committee?
It pretty much is, city departments. It's usually their safety coordinator, public works, waste management, kind of name it. I didn't recognize all the names, but it is when it says citywide, it's citywide departments. And pretty much I assume that they are supposed to have kind of a representative. So yeah, you bet.
Robin?
Is in the current system, is there a way to track how many people have watched it or used it?
Yes. Oh, good question. I should have said that. Yes, there is. Obviously for HPD, that was mandatory. We would run reports, but there is a report run. And so the training division would be able to track that. They're the ones who actually upload it again. It's in the system for 2 years. They kind of have to do it every 2 years. So it's in there through 2024. And I talked to that unit who's responsible. The only thing they would have to do is just kind of add the city departments kind of as a query, and could see how many are taking it. And as a result, I meant to tell you, sorry, that there's also, so there's 3 modules. It's basically 20 minutes apiece. That's the in-service. But we added a 4th module, which is a survey. And so there were a few questions. Jess, I don't know if you want to talk on that. But what we also did is my contact at the training division, basically she added that thing it would be required to take prior to getting credit for the class, and hopefully they would answer it. And then she can run that report, and the results can be provided to analyze that. Yes.
Okay, so following up on that, then I have a modest proposal between now and Bike Month. In years past, when we had in-person Bike Month activities, including Bike to Work Day, there was if I recall correctly, there was an award for a City of Houston department. I think it was called the Golden Helmet, that went to the department that had the most participation in that event for that day. I would propose a second, and I would say much more important award that could go to the department that between now and then could get the highest percentage of their employees trained as a bicycle friendly driver. And it doesn't require wearing Lycra or getting sunburned or helmets or anything on bike to work day, but it would give them bragging rights for the next year and would be an incentive to get more people trained.
I mean, that report, we would certainly have a deadline, and then I could have that, that report run by the academy and the results provided to the coordinators.
As far as the survey goes, which I kind of got a little excited about, so I've been taking courses in public health to help merge the conversations between transportation and public health. And something I learned was basically about the stages of change and how you craft educational materials to meet people where they are, instead of just throwing information at people and crossing your fingers and hoping that it changed some bit of their behavior. So the questions that we asked are specifically geared to understand and identify where people are in the stage of change. So are they at this pre-contemplation stage where they've actually never thought of it at all? Have they made some kind of change? So it'll give us more information on where people are within the city of Houston, so that if we want to follow up with additional education, we know where people are and where to start. And one final thought on that, that would be also a really cool thing to include in our end of year. Yeah.
Any other questions from folks online?
It's a real shame to hear that a cyclist perished on a trail, because that's supposed to be our safe space. And I've been seeing this a lot more with motorcyclists using the trails, for me, specifically on White Oak Bayou. And one time I saw someone on a moped going probably close to 50, weaving around pedestrians and cyclists. I didn't know what else to do but call 911. So my question is, what is that all we could do for now? What's the best protocol for enforcement in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, this particular motorcycle was actually on the public street crossing and went across. But as far as if a non-authorized motorized, vehicle is on the bike trail, you can. In all reality, it's going to be very difficult. Obviously, our patrol cars don't go down there, and we also don't necessarily have a lot of resources as far as patrolling that. But I would say this, as much information as you can get, because let's just say you happen to do that and you get the license plate of that particular person. And then maybe that person is, stopped on traffic, or maybe that person is involved in some other crime, meaning in a totality of things we can do, but unfortunately.
It's tough to capture that when it whiz by so fast.
No, I mean, absolutely. And so if there's, but reports of that too, and that's what's important sometimes about reporting, is that whether or not it's making a report or calling in, if we start seeing some similarities and some red flags, then maybe some of those, as far as enforcement, whether we have our ATV unit could maybe sit up in those areas or something like that. But again, it's also very difficult, and it would also be very dangerous sometimes to engage in any kind of pursuits, which we wouldn't. So, it's really sad that someone is going to violate and utilize, it's supposed to be a safe space, right? For other users, they need to be on the road.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, not seeing any other hands in chat, we'll go to the next slide, quarterly updates. Next slide. We'll start with the Bikeway project updates. Next slide. All right, we'll start with the city of Houston. Some notes, 11th Street and Mitchell. Is that Mitchell or Michelle? Michaud. Okay, there you go. Studewood to Michaud, street rehab is complete. Construction of safety improvements are underway. Construction of the pedestrian refuge island underway at White Oak and Michaud. Another one is Lawndale. Its substantial completion was reached in December of 2022. Ribbon cutting is expected in the coming weeks. I believe Lauren's online. If there are any questions for City of Houston?
I have a couple questions. There's a couple here that are mentioning they're awaiting permit from TxDOT, the North Main project and the Patterson. I was wondering if there's any details on that, or maybe Anna could address what may be going on with that.
So we received Patterson.
Yay, excellent.
And we're working out final details on North Main. Plus, we're going to do one last round of business engagement with the community up there, and then that'll be moving forward.
Great.
David, I have a question on Patterson. Does that mean that TxDOT did get a permit from train people? Anna?
Don't know. I don't even remember that. I will say we got the needed permits. I will have to look into the related permits of the permits.
I believe
to get
that
you
was
answer.
that was the holdup on that
Oh,
for quite a
okay.
while.
Unless,
and they
unless
tend to
Anna's on
take
the
a long
call and
time.
knows, but otherwise we can check. But we were very excited to hear we got the permit.
What was the concern, Mike? I'm sorry, I missed it.
TxDOT was being held up by Union Pacific.
Oh, okay.
Okay. For them to do their engineering, give them the right of way. And it sounds like maybe they got it. So that's good.
I had another question that I think I raised in an email in the past couple of days. So Lawndale is mentioned here, and I had me riding with some folks on Lawndale on Sunday, and we rode the length of it all the way, the whole bikeway. Along the way, there was one car parked in the bike lane, and of course that was disappointing. But just past that car, there was what one of the riders said is a new sign that allowed parking during certain off-peak hours along Lawndale. So I was surprised to see that, and just wondered, getting a look like, why is that there?
Yeah. We'll have to go check. You didn't happen to get a picture. You
No,
can
and I
tell us
wish
exactly which street it's on, could you?
It's Lawndale. It's northwest of Wayside. Just a few blocks northwest of Wayside. And it was on northbound Lawndale.
I'll have to take a look at that. There is one quirk on that project on the southbound side leading up to KIPP Academy by the train tracks. We had to do some kind of unique designs because you have to do something by train tracks and the school's queue there. But there shouldn't be any sign that specifically says parking, because the whole point is it's either queuing or bike space.
Right.
Let's just take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question on the High Star Hillcroft westward. In the notes, it just says mural at the intersection is complete. I'm assuming that includes a bikeway, or?
The bikeway work was done in advance. The most recent
Okay.
Was the Bloomberg funded mural project.
Murals, okay. got
And
it.
while you're on that, I think I have told you all, but I'll reiterate, we have applied for a federal Reconnecting Communities grant to extend the Hillcroft project north across 5969 to the Hillcroft Transit Center, and further north across the tollway to Wisdom High School, and south to the Bayou. And we hope to hear the answer to that in the next couple of months from the feds.
Great.
More questions? The next slide. Precinct 1, we didn't receive any significant updates, but Amar is here if there's any questions for Precinct 1.
Are what this Hillcroft, what's the boundaries on that one? Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. So I was talking about the Hillcroft project is from Willow Bend to north of Union Pacific Railroad. It was a part of a larger study between Brays Bayou and Sims Bayou. Given the crossing at US 90 and Union Pacific Railroad, we had looked at pursuing funding, partnership funding for the northern segment that was mostly in the median. A much more feasible project. The community would appreciate it. More of a trail-like project, similar to what the Heights Trail is. But that again, we will look for other funding partnerships for that project.
Thank you.
And the one last update is we are still working on the, I don't know if it's in here, the Brays Bayou Bridge. We are working with, we submitted the agreement to the city last week. I know you had asked me about it. So as soon as that agreement gets finalized at City Council, then we would be able to advertise the Brays Bayou Bridge project. So
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Next slide. All right, moving on to precinct 2. Some notable changes is again, Cois? How you pronounce that? The first with
Coas, I've heard it.
Cois. Okay, thank you. You learn something new every day, huh? It's in construction. It's moved to construction. Envision certification is upcoming. Also with Freeport Street, it's in the bid phase, and those are some of the outstanding updates from last report. I don't know if Jorge's on, but if so, if you have questions for him. Not next slide. Houston Parks Board, some of the updates here. We have Hunting Bayou, partial substantial completion under US 90 pending TxDOT Cindy Houston agreement. Over in Sims Bayou, Glenbrook Park from 45 to Revel Park to Telephone Road, partial substantial completion, small segment under I-45. Another one, the Brays Bayou, Brayburn Glen to Eldridge, who has moved, the construction has moved to in progress.
Okay, y'all know I'm new. Tracy said, I don't see much of bike lane activity in the northern part of the city. Example, the Greenspoint area where there are many businesses where professionals might be interested in cycling. Is anything in the works for this?
So as a reminder to the BAC, 18 months ago, 12 months ago, we worked on the bicycle prioritization exercise. So we identified the 4 factors most important, which included equity, safety, connectivity, and demand. We laid out the entire 1,800-mile bike network to identify which are the priority projects, because we have tons of work we need to do, but we need to be able to start somewhere. So as we build, we will continue going down that list. We will get to the whole city eventually, but between us and our partners, there may be any area of the city that doesn't have something going at any one moment, but it is all going in, and the more we build, the more we can connect to.
just to add a comment, the North Houston district had done a livable center study that had some recommendation. So I think so it may be good to connect the commenter with the North Houston district to see if they may have any plans.
Next slide. All right, well, Metro, no significant updates for Metro. I believe Johanna is on if anybody has questions for Metro. No, good. Next slide. The management districts, no updates as well. Walnut Bend, I think we were waiting for the completion. That was completed in December 2022. Next.
I have a question for
Mhm.
Metro. I remember that there was at the bike centers or like along the red line, there used to be bike repair stations and they were removed like a while ago. I was just wondering what's the reasoning or what happened with that, or if they were going to be repaired and put back.
Yes, we're having supply chain issues, which is part of the reason we were expanding also some of those on the purple line, in fact, on the yeah, the extension of the purple and some of the green, but we're having some supply issues to be able to replace those. There were some issues with vandalism and those tools being taken away several times. So we were trying to reconsider and understand what the best next steps would be to address that. But in the midst of all that, we're just facing supply issues for being able to replace those at this time.
Yeah, I know that's a common issue even with Park Sport. Their tools get taken there as well on the trail. So yeah, thanks for the update. Hopefully we can find a solution for that.
Yes.
Next slide. Oh, no, stairs. I'm sorry. Here at the terrace, I didn't receive any updates here for the terraces, but I'm not sure if Sherry's on anyone. If you have any questions. Seeing none, moving on.
Oh,
Next.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So when you say we don't have any updates from the TERS, is that, I mean, is that an email that goes out to them?
Right.
asking
This is
them?
based on the
Okay.
last reporting. Sent out to the different groups to see if there's any updates. Sometimes they say there have been no updates, so we
Okay,
just carry that over.
great, thank you.
With TxDOT, with I-10, Cone Street to Westcott, still waiting a permit. I believe Anna and David met about this a couple of weeks ago. Status on that, nothing has changed. Okay, so design documentation submitted for permit to construct under the railroad, still funding late fiscal year 2023. Next slide. We're going to talk about no parking in the bike lanes. Next slide. As of January 3rd, 185 citations have been issued. That's 12 more from the last reporting. A total of $12,520 have been collected. That's $1,485 more from the last reporting. Also, we have 22 completed trainings. That's up 4 from last reporting. Next slide. Our top 3 locations, 9100 Galveston Road, 900 Bastrop, 2300 Polk Street, and that's up 1. I want to note that 9100 Galveston Road and 900 have not increased from last reporting. So since October, no new infractions have happened, but they still remain in the top 3. Some of our new locations, we just have one since the last reporting of 1500 Hardy Road, 5300 Polk, 800 Gray, 900 Gray, 900 Hardy, and 9000 Town Park Drive. Next slide. All right, we'll move forward to open forum. This time is for the committee members to speak anything related to bicycling that may not have been covered on our agenda today. Chair?
I had a question for David. What's the status of I think it was the 2 projects that I can't remember what the term is, but it's essentially the small quick fix type projects. There was one on Main Street and the other one was the crossing of San Jacinto.
Thank you. And I'd actually forgotten to add that to my report. Thank you. So these are the strategic bikeway investments that the BAC voted on. I did not realize that once we have the approval for it, we actually need a slightly different process than we do for when we go out and do major bikeway projects. So we are working internally on the process. With the dollars are there, the base design is there. It's a little bit of admin stuff, but as soon as we figure that out, it'll be shortly soon. And that is my fault for not recognizing process.
And if I recall, we still have some dollars left if something else came up. What, was there a third project, or is there, or could there be a third or even fourth, depending on if they're really small, that we could squeeze in this year?
There can be. My only request is let me know that the process is going to work right before I open that up again. So we just don't get a backlog that I can't get through yet. And as soon as I know we're in a good place, then we'll come back out again.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, keep your lists.
Go ahead.
First of all, I've really been enjoying all the refuge islands that have been going in, and the MKT spur. Those have been game changers for me personally. Also, like a lot of people, I was taken by surprise by how much of the B-cycle network has been decommissioned, and to me, that is really part of the Houston public transportation system, or it has become that. And appropriately, from my understanding, is that Houston Metro might be stepping in to pick up the slack on that. And so I think it would be great to get representatives from both B-cycle and Houston Metro to give us an update on that.
Votes tomorrow, as I understand it, at the Metro Board, and I don't know if there's an opportunity, and maybe others can fill in on if there is an opportunity for the public to opine, either way. Obviously, I'm very much in favor. I think it's an abstain.
There is public comment, or you can sign up to speak for the Metro Board tomorrow. I apologize, I am not up to speed on exactly. I mean, I think that there was a recommendation from in another committee, and so the board will take action tomorrow. But as soon as I'm sort of up to date on what's going on and on how this is moving forward at the next BAC, I can work with the staff and provide an update.
So where would we go to sign up? Is there a website is it on the Metro website or something?
Yes, we have ridemetro.org, and there is a board meeting, and then you can sign up in there. There's a form online that you can do that.
What time is the meeting?
Let me check. I think it's 2:30. Sorry, I apologize. I'll put it in the chat in a minute.
Tom, if I can add a comment. Our office is sending a letter of support for Metro.
Office.
So just wanted to let you know.
Thank you for the mic. Yeah, I just completed a multi-country mini-city tour, Peru and Mexico. And I was really very, very, very disappointed at coming from a major city in the United States and looking at what the so-called underdeveloped countries were doing with slow-moving traffic and particularly bicycles. The control of speed was done, super fantastic by speed bumps. Can you believe that? They use speed bumps, before people need to stop at stoplights, speed bumps at crosswalks, different types of speed bumps. And, just to talk about my normal tirade, their use of the turtles was the only thing that I saw failed. I did see, particularly I think it was in Mexico, where I saw they used the same little plastic turtles, and those same little plastic turtles was the main thing that I saw failing. But, I just would like us to maybe think about using speed bumps a lot more. Cars don't like them. However, if I want to slow down traffic anywhere, I can use a speed bump to get it to slow down and make that road safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. V. Any other comments from the committee?
So, to kind of not build, maybe build up on Dr. V. I've been to Mexico and I've seen those speed bumps, and they're not the speed bumps that we have here. Yeah, they're kind of like half the size of a melon, maybe, like going up, and so they really slow down, like compared to the little, like because if you, the community, like we just had some speed bumps or speed humps in my neighborhood, and they're like the longer 3 foot kind of like slowly coasting over speed bump. They slow down, but I still see some cars like, because maybe their shocks are blown or something, they just don't even feel it as they're driving fast on top of it. So I don't know what the toolkit is for speed bumps on, like, what we are, like what the city is authorized to use on that, but like, are there any other measures like for speed bumps on varieties types?
So all of those are individual treatments in our neighborhood traffic management program. We look at, and we've been trying to open up that box so it's not just a bump or a hump, but also things like chicanes. Street trees actually make great traffic calming. We're really trying to take a much broader view of it than historically. I want to just make two clarifying statements so we're all on the same page. There are certain streets we cannot put traffic calming on, according to certain regulations, major thoroughfares and things like that, which I don't believe Mexico has a similar equation of. But also, and this might make you feel a little better, Dr. V, we are moving away from the armadillos, from the turtles. The new designs that you see out there have the concrete curbs, WAB, Commonwealth, 11th. So we have heard you, and we are moving to a much more updated design. No, it's all good.
Just another comment on the speed bump, that the like particularly on I'm just thinking of the Columbia Tap and Blodgett right there at TSU, that in Mexico, before you cross there it could be one of two things. There would be speed humps on both sides of the trail, or the trail would be elevated and made into a speed bump. So there would be, you have to slow down, to let people go through. And it's not only just it's for slow moving traffic. So they use them as crosswalks and, also for bicycle traffic. But, I think we could do a lot more, with a different design.
If I could just respond to that, that is exactly the design for Columbia Tap at Blodgett. We worked with the city engineer's office in figuring out what is the right design. And I saw a video of someone shared with me the video of a metro bus being able to go safely across also, because you want to make sure your public transportation and other emergency services can move through there safely at the same time. So that was I think so that design probably is the most successful that we have done as compared to other places. So plus it has all the treatments. Once it gets completed, you will see that you don't, as a pedestrian or a cyclist, you are at the same level across the trail, and the vehicle comes up to there's markings for clearly defined spaces for people walking, people biking, and the people driving. So I think so you'll see all of those improvements once the intersection gets complete.
Just a question, since we're going on, will there be other speed bumps down Blodgett? After I cross the trail, then before I get to Tier West, or maybe before I get to Scott Street, will there be other things to slow the traffic down so that whole area will be, under the, somewhere around 35, 25 miles an hour, so people can be safe?
That is the goal of the design. So if you go, I can send you the link to the website, and you will be very pleasantly surprised to see what is coming at Tier West and Blodgett. So you will be excited.
Okay, good. I like to be excited.
Is there any chance that what we're talking about is going to be part of the updated IDM as far as elevating trail crossings at streets or having speed bumps on either side? Because, well, I sure agree with that approach.
There are a whole bunch of things coming. I can't recall off my head which things are in, although there are. Let me check exactly. Actually, it's going to be a public process, so you all see. There'll be time for everybody to see all of staff's recommendations. Right. Thank you.
Just our experience of working with the current public works has been, and planning department has been a really good experience as we are looking at these design alternatives, because we are still new, trying different pilot projects to see what works in one location. And if it works, then you can apply. A good example would be the protected bikeway or the floating bus stop design. The one design was done on Cavalcade that was improved upon on Polk, and the design that you're going to see on Blodgett is probably going to be one of the best designs, where all of those issues that we learned from in the last two designs is going to be improved. And same is going to be true for Cavalcade Homestead. Wherever those floating bus stops are happening, you will see a much better design. So we are learning as a city and as a region. And I would say Public Works has been really open to learning through these processes and open to making sure that safety is addressed for all users, people walking, people biking, people rolling, and people driving. So I appreciate the city being a great partner.
Great to hear. Thank you, Amar.
And on that topic, like I understand, like, guinea pigs on implementing stuff and trying stuff, right? And then getting it better out as time goes on in other areas. Like, will that new and improved process be like retrofitted to the older ones in the future? Or what's the plan for that?
It's a hard decision about whether we go back. Oh, sorry. It's a hard decision whether we go back with resources and update a street that is pretty good but not our best, or then take a street that hasn't had anything. And, we struggle with these resources all the time. And if there's a case that something's unsafe for any reason, of course. If it's just not as good as our current best, we have to really think about that equity equation about, is there a neighborhood that hasn't had anything yet?
Yeah, because I think about that, right? Because we want to make a good high comfort network, and that's the goal. And I think that qualifies almost, because like if we have people trying out the older the first designs and aren't seeing like the comfort or seeing the issues that have been approved upon in the future projects, and if we retrofit those and they see them in better condition, maybe it could like change the people who are trying these infrastructure things to reconsider like how these things are being used and not consider it like a waste of money. Because I hear a lot about that on the Cavalcade and on Hardy, because people are saying that they don't ride Hardy, but it's just basically getting it clean. And now that we have a mini sweeper, like that's kind of going away. And then with Cavalcade was the issue of like pedal strike on the curbs. So that's if we can revisit that and get that better, then if they have perchance happen to try it again, like, oh, it's changed and it's better now. So like maybe we're going to have them here talking and speaking and engaging. Oh, and then another thing I just occurred is like there was a topic about maybe having extra money in a small budget. Like in your experience or with your knowledge, like end of trip facilities, is that an expensive thing to kind of work on? Like maybe in a city department wise, like small right now? Because like, I mean, I don't remember when we first had our meetings here, like we were talking about putting bike racks in this building and we still don't have them yet. So I was like, like, all right, so maybe that's something we can look at and start, with the budget that we have.
Just a couple clarifications. It's not extra money in a budget. It's moving money from projects we want to do to different projects we want to do. It's all the same pot. But yes, when we talk about municipal facilities, end of trip parking, that is something we're going to take a look at. One of the first things we did a couple of years ago was actually look to see where B-Cycle could kind of fill that gap, and you'll see B-Cycle stations kind of nearby at 611 Walker, a couple of other places. But the end of trip private, available for your own bike, we need to revisit. In the scheme of everything we do, it is a small dollar item. There are just some other logistical things, but we're going to come back to it, and we appreciate being reminded of it.
Awesome, thanks.
On that note, can I just make one last comment before? I think so. There are a number of partners. I'm on a management district board, and that may have resources. And I think so. If the city can create an efficient process that can reduce barriers for partners to implement that, and I would be happy to share with our experience related to we purchased bike racks and fix-it station more than a year ago, and we are still haven't installed them because I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that amidst the huge range of things that we can do, if we can find ways to help people who are able to do it get it done sooner, we can. It is small successes that we can. It doesn't address the broader issue, but I'm saying there may be some near-term successes if we can work across those barriers.
I'm going to reach out to you directly, and I'm going to learn from what you have.
It's basically, yeah, I remember I used to go to this bar frequently, and I asked them about bike racks, and they're like, yeah, we want to get them, but that was before the parking minimums, I think, went into effect. It's the East End Hardware. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I think it's off Leland or Polk, one of those two. So they're right off the trail. They were having a lot of issues with like the parking minimum, or they had to have the parking at certain spots, and if they wanted to put a bike rack, it couldn't take up a parking spot. So I haven't been there since, but like I just remember that conversation that I had with the owner or manager trying to get a bike rack in that business, and it was like, well, kind of like gave me a glimpse of what Amar was mentioning, like how it's the struggle is to like get a bike rack in there and on their property, right, because of the parking.
It's interesting because we actually give a reduction in vehicle parking if you put in bicycle parking.
This was a couple years ago. It's probably like
Maybe it
4 or
was
5 years
before
ago.
that
Yeah.
was- Okay.
Yeah. So I just remember that conversation, and like it's good to hear that it's updated.
All right, no more open forum. We can go to the next slide. All right, announcements, events. One announcement I wanted to give to the BAC, our lovely chair went to a meeting the other night, Rotary Houston Sky Club meeting. Connected me with Edward Pettit, who would like to invite everyone here on the BAC to join the Facebook page, the Friends of Columbia Tap Facebook page, and that's at www.facebook.com/Friends of Columbia Tap. He'll be doing a presentation at the Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting on the CTAP. So that's what we have as far as the announcements. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, before you move on to that, they do have some events coming up, including their second annual Third Ward on Tap, I believe is what it's called. I think that's coming up in March. But is that right? Okay. I didn't get to the one last year. I had a schedule conflict, but I certainly have it on my calendar this year. Go ahead.
It was a great event. Participated like many different groups. It's a good way to come out and enjoy Third Ward. There will be a couple of tours I know done during the event, and so you can actually tour some through the Third Ward. And very interesting, one of the tours talked about the wildlife on Buffalo Braves Bayou there. So yeah.
And I think another event is being led by you, isn't it, Dr. V?
That's on the 19th.
Okay.
Different tour.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so our announcements, our next meetings will be the Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting, February 22nd at 2:30, held at 611 Walker in the John B. Rare Conference Room on the 6th floor, also will be held virtually. Followed up by the Education Subcommittee, March 22nd at 2:30, Also held in John B. Rare Conference Room, 6th floor, 611 Walker. Also held on Microsoft Teams. And then we'll meet right back here, April 26th at 2:30 here in the council chambers, annex chambers. Next slide. We thank you all for a great meeting. Oh, we have one more. Okay.
Just a question about so announcements events. So anybody can really put in a word or like an announcement and just by emailing the BAC?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
We prefer to be bicycle.
Okay. Bicycle related. Right. Perfect. Exactly.
I'm sorry. This is bicycle related on the 19th at 10 p.m. In conjunction with Edo Bicycle Company. We'll be doing a history tour on February 19th of the 3rd Ward. So come and check that out. February 19th, 10 a.m. Edo Bike Company. February 19th. And also, we're talking about bicycle related stuff. I'm sorry. I'll be doing another presentation that you'll have to check March the 2nd or first or second Thursday in March. I'll be doing a presentation at Trek on at the Trek Bicycle Shop on bicycle backpacking, part of my trip to Peru.
Which one? Which?
That's the Westland shop. Yeah.
Okay. And I would like to move to adjourn the move. Do we have to move or can I just do it?
Just do it.
Let's adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you guys. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.